Now, the chairman of an inquiry into the contaminated blood scandal has said that more people who lost loved ones should be entitled to compensation. Last summer, Sir Brian Langstaff recommended that those infected with HIV and hepatitis C because of transfusions in the 1970s and 80s should receive interim payments of £100,000. He now wants the government to go further.
Around 380 children with bleeding disorders were infected with HIV. Some have died in childhood, but their parents have never received compensation. Children who are orphaned as a result of infections, and sometimes lost siblings and other relatives too, have never had their losses recognised. It is time to put this right.
Well, joining us now is Bill Wright from Haemophilia Scotland. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Bill, what's your reaction to this? Do you agree with widening the number of people who should be eligible for compensation?
Absolutely. This is something we've been campaigning for a long time. I've personally been in touch with many parents who lost loved ones as children, or indeed the sons and daughters of those, normally fathers in the case of haemophilia, who died. Their lives were turned upside down. The impacts on their long-term mental health have been horrendous. In some cases, it was the main income earner who passed away, in the case of sons and daughters. But actually, I myself was infected with hepatitis C, and I have to say, my heart goes out, having a son and daughter myself, my heart goes out to, and it always has, to those parents. The stories are truly, truly tragic. And it's a bit cliched, but this is a truly historic and momentous day. And I did rather actually expect it, as I said on Good Morning Scotland this morning.
And this is interesting because the recommendations, I suppose, have been released ahead of the full report. And this is being done because Sir Brian Langstaff says he doesn't want any more delay because it has taken such a long time for the whole compensation process to happen.
Well, I first started campaigning on this about 25 years ago. There are others, and I'll name them. Bruce Norval and Alice Mackey and her husband, who've been campaigning for longer than that on this, and over 30 years. And this has taken us decades to get to this point. And we served a petition in 1999 in the Scottish Parliament. There was one calling for a public inquiry. We've now had two. But there was also another petition calling for compensation back in 1999. And it's taken us all that time to get here. The good news is that Sir Brian has had a very thorough look at all the evidence. I mean, he's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. The evidence has been very compelling as to why there should be proper compensation. The issue now is for the UK government to act very swiftly. We need to be talking to them. They need to be talking to survivors in all four corners of Britain. And actually, as Sir Brian says, there needs to be no further delay now. That's why Sir Brian has made this second interim ruling.
And, he describes this as the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS. I mean, if it is of such significance, why do you think it has taken so long for people to accept that, for the government to accept that, and for compensation to be paid?
Well, I think you've got to look at the psychology of this. You don't have all afternoon, but, I mean, there's been a culture of defensiveness, I think, within the NHS itself. That message is then carried up through civil servants in terms of medical officers to the government saying it wasn't avoidable. Much of it was indeed avoidable. And actually, this inquiry has unlocked that door into those, that sort of culture that's grown up. And one of the things that I hope comes out in the final report, or Sir Brian's final report in the autumn of this year, is the whole culture of defensiveness within the NHS needs to change. We've seen it still happening down in Birmingham. culture of defensiveness amongst NHS managers, and that filters down into the medical and nursing staff. And we really need to make some changes here. But the immediate job to do is to get ahead, get money to people, get financial recognition to people before anyone else dies.
Bill, thank you very much indeed for talking to us on Lunchtime Live. Bill Wright there from Haemophilia Scotland.